Hi, I'm your friend Claude.
And I'm just Jamie.
And it's December, and you know what that means. More Christmas content. On today's show, we are covering our favorite Christmas movies of all time.
So I have 6 Christmas movies listed, 4 on the list proper, and 2 sort of like mentionables. I didn't rank them because although one is definitely in the number 1 slot, I don't know that I could rank the rest of them. They're all kind of just like equally 1A, 1B, 1C in terms of those top 4.
Sounds acceptable.
All right.
We'll do the same.
All right. So I'll start with the ones I just want to mention that do not make the cut. You know, one of them's, I guess it's considered a classic at this point. I mean, it's surprisingly old, 24 years, and it still seems like a new movie to me, and I think it holds up in terms of its visual style. It's The Santa Claus.
Ooh.
Yeah, Tim Allen. I think it kind of was a new way of looking at Santa. It starts with sort of the premise that Santa dies.
Right.
Kind of new.
Yeah.
And it just kind of has like a different, at the time it seemed very, like now we're kind of used to like taking these different approaches to Santa Claus, like fantasy, sci-fi, sort of a fun, instead of like the jolly old Santa character, it's sort of like a more modern version of the character.
Right.
And obviously, the character doesn't start off as Santa at all.
It's a more realistic approach to Santa.
Right. So, but I think it's super watchable. I even like the sequels, even though they get a little bit ridiculous. I actually really like Tim Allen's performance as like the synthetic Santa in, I think it's the second one.
I think you're right. That's the only one I've seen in the theater.
And that's just kind of like silly entertaining, but released by Disney, by the way. I didn't mention that. So yeah, 1994, The Santa Claus.
This is a movie that I remember well. I remember that everybody in my family went to see it except me. I chose Dumb and Dumber, and I stand by that choice.
I think in general, if I'm choosing between those two movies, I'm going to go Dumb and Dumber. Don't get me wrong.
Right. But yeah, this was, it was kind of a big deal when it came out. At least I remember a lot of peers talking about it and a lot of advertising. And like you said, it got at least 2 sequels.
Yeah, spawned 2 sequels. It's fun. I think it's worth a watch. The next one is actually, this one's kind of unique. It's a Christmas Carol, and there's been obviously a lot of versions of the Christmas Carol over the years. This one was actually a TV movie. It aired on TNT. It stars Patrick Stewart as Scrooge, and was released in 1999. It's funny, Patrick Stewart did like a string of sort of like high-budget TV movies for TNT. I think he did Moby Dick at one point, where he played Captain Ahab.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But this is the one that I like. I think it's just, it's not a spectacular version of the story. It's just the Christmas Carol story. But I like it, and it's probably because I have a soft spot for Patrick Stewart, because I really like the Star Trek Next Generation. So I don't really have any more of an intellectual reason for liking this one especially.
Well, that's great casting anyway, honestly.
It's true.
He's a classically trained actor, and he's perfect for that role.
He does. He fits right in.
You picture him more as, I was going to say babyface characters, but
I'm talking wrestling.
To see him get a chance to take a turn as a classic literature villain is pretty cool.
Right. Well, of course, Ebenezer is redeemed in the story, as we all know. So that brings me to my list proper. Do you have your list sort of at least separated in that way? Do you have things you want to mention before we go to my list?
I do. I do have some honorable mentions. 3 of them, to be precise. I put them in the honorable mention category primarily because they are movies that I have or continue to watch every Christmas that have a lot of Christmas content, but aren't necessarily technical Christmas movies.
All right, okay.
So, to that end, I'm going to start off with, I guess, the most recent one, and that would be 1992's Batman Returns.
All I want in return is a chance to find my mom and dad.
Okay, all right.
I'm guessing by your reaction you don't have it on your list.
I don't have on my list. Whenever people start talking about Die Hard as a Christmas movie,
Right.
which I don't really like that idea. I know everybody's like the internet's crazy about that idea. I always want to come back with, well, fine. If Die Hard's a Christmas movie, then so is Batman Returns.
Exactly.
That's my go-to response.
If I were a fan or had ever even actually seen Die Hard, it probably would fall into this category of my list. And yeah, I've still never seen Die Hard. One of these days I'll get around to it. But yeah, I think, there's a separate area for movies like this that have, Christmas figure heavily into the plot, but they aren't overall a Christmas movie. And that's the case with Batman Returns. It's a little weird because it came out in either May or June of '92, because I definitely went to see it in the theater for my 10th birthday.
Well, it's following that summer blockbuster trend that the '89 Batman didn't really start, but sort of made a real Hollywood trend.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like June and you go into the theater and the movie opens with like a choir and snowfall.
True.
But yeah, it's I can't really say the funnest of the original Batman movies, but it's my favorite. I think it's your favorite.
Yeah, I have a hard time. I go back and forth between the '89 Batman and the '92 Batman movies.
Right.
I will say I really like the bat suit from
Yes.
Batman Returns.
Me too.
It's probably my favorite film bat suit.
I think I am right there with you on
And
that.
I know you're not as big a fan. I do like the Batfleck, the Ben Affleck Batman suit too. So, but I do, yeah. But this one's probably my favorite. I've waxed poetic about my thoughts of Michelle Pfeiffer and Catwoman in this movie. I could go on and on of my love for that character and her. But yeah, I do go back and forth because the '89 Batman is like the Batman. It's so iconic, It's kind of like maybe Batman Returns is the better movie, but Batman '89 is the original. So
Right.
I go back and forth.
Well, yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer is a Christmas gift all by herself.
It's so true.
But yeah, this is certainly the most artistic and unique Batman movie, I think, that has come out in is it safe to say the modern era? It's an overused term.
Nearing 30 years now.
Yeah. It just feels more appropriate to me to watch it at this time of year.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Next on my list of honorable mentions is another Tim Burton movie that came out 2 years earlier. None other than Edward Scissorhands.
Okay.
It's another movie that, though it's not a Christmas movie per se, has a strong Christmas element involved in the plot, and just the mood of it feels right, again, around this time of year. Must be something about Tim Burton's early work.
Yeah, it's that melancholy Christmas vibe. It's like Gothic Christmas.
Right.
This is kind of what Tim Burton was working in at that time.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, his movies just happen to take place throughout a whole year, whenever they're set. And, it kind of ends on a Christmassy note with Edward, making snow out of ice sculptures.
Right. I've only seen Edward Scissorhands probably twice, beginning to end, and probably not within the last 15 years.
Well, you're going to have to rectify that.
I suppose so.
What a fantastic movie. Finally, on my honorable mentions, we have, from 1984, the original Is It a Christmas Movie or Not? Gremlins.
All right.
This kind of scratches several itches. Christmas a little bit in there, horror, fantasy, maybe adventure in some regards. But it's such a unique movie. It's such Christmas is a huge part of the plot. And it's interesting that it's one of these movies from the 80s that was marketed heavily to children and has characters that appeal to children, but the story elements and kind of the overall message are very adult, and even some of the scenes.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely sort of a hybrid, trying to walk a thin line and probably steps over on one side and then the other in turn.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this if you saw this movie as a kid before the the truth about Santa Claus's existence had been broken to you,
What are you talking about?
then you found out the hard way in this movie.
Found out what?
When Phoebe Cates describes the death of her father, I think it was, who had dressed up as Santa Claus and gotten stuck in the chimney and was found well after he started to decay.
It was Christmas Eve. I was 9 years old. Me and Mom were decorating the tree, waiting for Dad to come home from work. A couple hours went by. Dad wasn't home. Mom called the office. No answer. Christmas Day came and went, and still nothing. So the police began a search. 4 or 5 days went by. Neither one of us could eat or sleep. Everything was falling apart. It was snowing outside. The house was freezing, so I went to try to light up the fire. And that's when I noticed the smell. The firemen came and broke through the chimney top. And me and Mom were expecting them to pull out a dead cat or a bird. And instead, they pulled out my father. He was dressed in a Santa Claus suit. He'd been climbing down the chimney on Christmas Eve, his arms loaded with presents. He was going to surprise us. He slipped and broke his neck, died instantly. And that's how I found out there was no Santa Claus.
Yeah, I have to watch Gremlins again. I've only seen this one once as well. I've not been a regular viewer.
Yeah, this is at least every other year for me, but
Right.
I try to catch it every year.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my not quite Christmas honorable mentions.
I hadn't considered doing a list in that way. I don't know that I would have considered Edward Scissorhands or Gremlins, but Batman Returns definitely.
Right.
So we're moving on to my list proper. So these are all very specifically Christmas movies, not just sort of Christmas adjacent. I'm going to start with one of the more obvious ones, maybe least dynamic ones, and it's Paramount 1954 White Christmas. Now, I had never really seen White Christmas until I started the relationship with my current wife. And I had never seen it until probably 2012-ish or something like that.
Damn.
And I immediately, I like musicals, I like all that sort of thing. I did musical theater when I was in high school. So I'm totally into this movie. I totally get it. It's really good. Of course, it's always funny to watch these old school musicals because it's like you break into song and it's amazing how everybody knows the song and the dance routine.
Right.
But they also have like song and dance routines within the framework of a stage show, which is interesting. And at the same time, some of the actual dialogue, I'm not talking about when people are singing to each other, but when they're just talking to each other, actually is very modern in a lot of ways. Like it doesn't have that sort of like old-timey movie where I'm going to talk to you like this, and it doesn't sound very natural. There's a scene, my favorite scene of the movie doesn't have anything to do with Christmas or singing and dancing. It's a scene after Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye perform at the this outdoor Florida club. Mm-hmm. They're back in the dressing room changing, and it's like this. It's this one-shot scene. I don't think the camera cuts the whole time, and they're just talking about stuff as they like change their clothes and toss their shoes to each other. And it seems very tight. I don't know how much was improvised. If it was improvised, it was done very well. It's very naturalistic, and they meet those girls. Like he tries to introduce him to those girls. They're like, she went to Smith. Went to Smith. She couldn't even spell it. And it's like this dumb joke, but he knows it's a dumb joke, but it's funny. I don't know. My point is that there's just a lot of levels to that movie besides it just being like another sort of fuzzy feeling Christmas movie.
Yeah, I agree. This, believe it or not, your, I guess, unranked first pick is actually my number one favorite Christmas movie of all time.
Wow, all right.
Yeah, White Christmas is something that I discovered.
Sorry for stealing your thunder.
I mean, here we are talking about it, so I'm happy to do it at this point in the show. Probably discovered around the same year that I saw Batman Returns first, when I was about 10.
Oh, wow.
Just happened to come on during the Christmas season on like a Sunday afternoon, the local, Fox affiliate movie day or something. And it was just, we were home from school and had nothing to do, and it was just on. And it must have been either the best thing on or just something that was on while I was doing something else. And at some point, I don't know, it had to have been probably right around, I remember very heavily being interested in the scene with Danny Kaye and Vera Ellen dancing kind of by themselves.
Like on the dock?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's outside the club
Yeah.
that I was just talking about where that other
Yeah, so I
scene
figured it's
happens.
probably
Yep.
very near that scene. But it sucked me in, and for years I didn't remember what it was called, and I just remember this really cool old movie, like Christmas movie, and then finally figured it out and have watched it every year ever since. And I own it on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. I actually just downloaded some of the soundtrack the other day because the actual White Christmas album doesn't have a lot of the songs from the movie. It just has like White Christmas and like Christmas standards, but it doesn't have some of the soundtrack songs.
Right.
And it's been far too long that I haven't had those in my collection, so I've righted that this year.
Excellently done. So yeah, not a big surprise entry there, but a good one.
A wonderful story that will warm your hearts, just as the breathtaking scope of a new screen wonder will widen your eyes. White Christmas in VistaVision.
Your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
Want me to keep going, or do you want to pull one from your list since I kind of stole that one from you?
Yeah, I guess it's my turn. Since mine are unranked, I'm going to have to fight with myself over which one to present. I think at least two of mine are probably on yours, or at least more popular picks. So I'm going to go with the wild card here.
Okay.
1985's Santa Claus, the movie.
Prophecy has come to pass that there would come to us a chosen one, and that he himself would be an artist and a skilled maker of toys. From this day on, now and forever, you will bring our gifts to all the children in all the world. This is your legacy and your gift.
Oh, all right. I do not have that one.
Brought to you by the same producers and team behind Superman, the movie.
Suitable.
This is a big, at the time, a big budget presentation of the origin and the into the modern day career of Santa Claus. And it's weird because it's very high fantasy, but it's also set in like modern day city life.
Right.
So it's it's this combination. But as a kid, it just works so well on me. This is the one that stars Dudley Moore as Patch the Elf, who is probably Santa's most inventive yet most underappreciated elf. And disgruntled with his lack of appreciation, he strikes out on his own, leaves the North Pole, and is seduced into using his talents to help a crooked toy maker played by John Lithgow, who
Perfect.
seduces him to the dark side and wants his inventions for his own personal gain. And holiday magic ensues.
So wait, who plays Santa Claus?
I don't remember the guy's name. It's a guy that I hadn't known from anything else.
Okay.
I think it's Joe something. But to me, casting him was key to this movie working, much in the same way casting Christopher Reeve was key to Superman working, in that in order for these extremely unrealistic characters to be believable, you have to kind of get somebody who can only be associated with that character so you can sort of buy into that they're really this person.
Right. The actor's name is David Huddleston.
David, okay.
He's been in a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Yeah, that's his career.
Burgess Meredith also makes an appearance in this movie. I think he's the either Father Time or some sort of high figure in the mythos who bestows the powers upon Santa Claus.
Ancient elf, it says.
Yeah,
so.
there you go.
Yeah, you know, I have never seen Santa Claus the movie. I am almost 100% unfamiliar with the iconography from it.
Wow.
Yeah, I have no familiarity with it at all. So apparently that's another thing I have to remedy.
It is fun. Your kids, depending on how willing to engage in suspending their disbelief they are still at their ages, they might be right on the edge of being able to see this and truly appreciate it.
Based on what they say to me, they still are Santa Claus believers.
All right, well.
They're getting to the point where, like, you'd think that'd be coming to an end, and maybe it has, but they don't want their parents to know, like, 'cause they think they'll be ruining it for us. But I think they're still on board.
Well, I absolutely recommend Santa Claus the movie to your family, and I will certainly subject my family to it once again this year.
Excellent.
Alexander Salkind presents Dudley Moore and John Lithgow. The legend comes to life for the very first time. With all the magic, all the adventure, all the wonder. Santa Claus, the movie. Seeing is believing.
All right, so kicking back to me, I guess. Oh, I don't like. There's one I want to save that's pretty obvious, but it's definitely my number one. I got to choose between the other two, so I'm also going to fight with myself. I'm going to pull this one out because it's the more fun one. The other one has some just interesting things. I'm going to go with 1988, Buena Vista, Ernest Saves Christmas.
In the past, there have been many traditional ways to celebrate Christmas. With songs, with gifts, with family and friends. There's a new way.
Ho, 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 Bert.
With Ernest. Ernest P. Worrell. He's back.
Know what I mean?
Back to save Santa.
Santa's in the slammer.
Look at those beady, twinkling eyes.
Back to save Christmas. Back to save face.
You're dead meat. That's life for you. Isn't she a doll?
Ernest P. Worrell.
Mr. Funtime.
In the mission they said couldn't be done.
On Comet, on Cupid, on Donder.
In the movie they said shouldn't be done.
Sophie, Scruffy, Blister.
You guys say you have a problem with reindeer?
Trim the tree. Light the candles. Deck the hall. And hit the deck. 'Cause Ernest P. Worrell's coming to town. And he's coming
With colorful cards and festively wrapped packages. Air brakes.
Ernest Saves Christmas.
Oh, I knew it.
Is it on yours?
No.
Oh, good. Okay.
No.
But you knew I was going to have it.
Yes.
I think Ernest Saves Christmas is like the Forgotten Ernest movie.
Right.
Because, you know, the original run was Ernest Saves Camp, Ernest Goes to Jail, Ernest Scared Stupid, and then a bunch of pretty bad, like, direct-to-video movies.
Yeah.
But Ernest Saves Christmas is right in there in 1988, and I think it's great because it has, you know, the brothers.
Right.
Bobby and...
Chuck, I think it is. Bobby and Chuck.
Yep, and then and it also has, like, a good Hey Vern scene.
Right.
Which you don't actually see in the movies very much. Because he comes into the house and he's got the tree and he, you know, like, hey Vern, and he does the whole deal. There's a great scene where he dresses up as like this reptile wrangler because he's trying to sneak onto a movie set and he's just talking like this, and it's just really, really good. I'm a sucker for Ernest. I like those 4 movies. I'm not going to get into the direct-to-video sort of, you know,
We're
nonsense.
talking about the core 4.
That's right. That's right. The core 4 and a series.
Yes.
So, yeah, I just think it's good fun. The guy who plays Santa Claus is kind of like an old-school, classic, jolly, old man, pleasant, well, I'm Santa Claus type of character.
That's right. Yeah, you've seen him in the other things. He's got to be a character actor.
But overall, I just think it's a lot of fun, and I'll definitely watch it again this year.
I think I was thinking Joe for Santa Claus the movie because the guy they tap to become Santa Claus in this movie is named Joe.
Right, and he has he does like a children's television show, and he's like going to be the new Santa.
Right.
It's a great little storytelling device for like the immortality of Santa Claus. I think that's a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, a lot of these movies, like the Santa Claus and Santa Claus the movie in some ways, and this too, each take a different tactic when addressing passing the mantle of Santa Claus on or explaining how Santa Claus can be a never-ending presence.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
And I got to say, I think that Florida reptile wrangler character there was clearly Billy Bob Thornton's inspiration for his Sling Blade character.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought. It is too, because he's kind of doing like his jaws all stuck out.
Yeah,
I'm doing it, which really works great in an audio medium. Yeah, he's kind of got the squinty eye thing going. Boy,
There's a case to be made.
That's an interesting theory.
Yeah, I don't watch this yearly, even though I think I'm going to start. But I did watch this last year for the first time in Jesus, like probably at least 15 years as well. And I think it really holds up, and damn, I just love Ernest.
Ditto.
Hey, Vern, you've got to see my new holiday movie. It's called Ernest Saves Christmas. It's a great movie, Vern, and it's all about how I helped Santa out of this tough jam, and I had to drive the sleigh with all the reindeer. Let's see, there was Donner and Blitzen and Comet and Shorty and Lance and Doc and Sneezy. And Vern, those reindeer made one heck of a mess.
Ernest Saves Christmas, rated PG. Now playing at a theater near you. Check newspaper for showtime.
All right, so I'll kick it to you.
Well, I've got two left, and they're both heavy hitters.
As do I, and a couple shout-outs I forgot, but we'll get to those at the end.
I went backward in time with my honorable, so I'm going to keep going forward in time with this.
All right.
So that makes my next pick National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la.
After vacationing across America and throughout Europe,
Take it, Russ.
this holiday season, the Griswolds are going to play it safe.
Clark, we're stuck under a truck.
They're staying at home.
I give you the Griswold family Christmas tree.
Hope you're not getting sap all over your sweater, Clark.
All Clark wants is a quiet, old-fashioned Christmas. Sorry.
Got a little knot here. You can work on that.
What he's going to get is the gift that keeps on living.
Merry Christmas.
His family.
That's my number one.
Yes.
Far and away, my number one.
Well, we've each cut each other off at the kneecaps here. This is certainly the one I've seen the most, because it's actually, in our family, it's usually a Thanksgiving tradition.
Oh, that's wrong.
It's like, we'll eat dinner, and then we'll put this on to sort of like, well, you ate Thanksgiving dinner. Thanksgiving's over. It's officially starting the Christmas season.
It's funny because we wait till the last second. Like the
Really?
tradition within my family is Christmas Eve.
Oh.
Is when you watch Christmas Vacation.
Well, that's probably a better way to avoid the burnout that comes with starting so early, because by the time Christmas gets here, it's probably been put on 5 times.
Yeah.
And, within the season of each year, watching it that many times, it gets old. But by next year, I'm ready to go again.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, this movie doesn't get old. It's so well crafted. It's so packed full of beautiful little moments and quotable lines and great characters.
Absolutely is. It actually is probably my favorite comedy film of all time, period.
Wow, that's heavy praise.
I know. I mean, my that list is subject to change, and I'm working on it, but I think it sits in the top slot as we speak. Definitely my favorite Christmas movie. And like you said, it's just incredibly quotable. Chevy Chase is definitely at his peak here. And there's even great moments from, like, the side characters. Like, in my house, we're always quoting, like, the snooty neighbors.
Exactly.
Like, why is the carpet all wet, Todd? I don't know, Margot. Like, I could quote the movie endlessly. I can almost live my life speaking in Christmas Vacation quotes. I mean, it's great. Warner Brothers, 1989, by the way.
Right. Directed by Jeremiah Chechik.
Very important information. And it's definitely like I know Vacation is iconic in its own way, but this is like the seminal vacation movie.
Yeah.
I think probably the best National. Well, I know National Lampoon made some other stuff too.
The first three are quality and have quality moments in their own, but this is certainly has to be the most popular and the most well remembered.
I think it's the densest.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean in terms of moments and jokes. I mean, and then the thing is, even as I've continued to watch it every year, so I've seen it a lot.
Right.
I will find new things to find funny.
Right.
Like it used to be my favorite thing is when he shot down the hill. You don't even see him; it's just a flash of light and an explosion. But once you laugh at the same thing over and over and over again, whether it be his cursing rant, right. Or we're gonna have the happiest Christmas since Bing Crosby tap dance with Danny fucking Kaye.
Referencing White Christmas once again.
Exactly, because it's so good. My favorite moments turned into other things, like in the store when Eddie's putting dog food on the cart. Clark just innocently puts some light bulbs to immediately be crushed by another bag of dog food. There's another moment where Cousin Eddie walks into the room and he's just flicking at the toys and the stuff set up. And he just immediately one just goes to pieces at his fingertips. And that little moment of him just going bloop and the thing falling apart, right. I was in tears laughing at it. So there's just so many little things like that. Like even once you sort of burn through the obvious comedy notes, right. There's another layer to look at and laugh at, and so it's really great.
It's a perfect example of movies from a certain era being made in that way that where subtlety is such an important part of the overall product, and really taking your time to put in moments that are going to probably go unnoticed upon first viewing,
right?
And this is one of the best examples of that. And probably why it remains so popular and so watchable year after year after year.
And holds up so well. Doesn't feel dated at all.
No. Because, it deals with the chaotic nature of having a large family Christmas.
Yep.
We've all experienced that on one level or another. Maybe it's not even Christmas, but, those kinds of family get-togethers are, just chaotic in nature. They are, a hectic orchestra, if you will.
Yep.
And
it's
we
cacophony.
All get through them in much the same way as shown in this movie.
Yep. Absolutely. So yeah, it's my number one. There's more to talk about, but we've covered both of our number ones, but we'll get through it.
You better watch out. You better be good.
Can I take something out for you?
You better not live in the neighborhood, because the Griswolds are spending Christmas at home.
We didn't come to impose.
Oh, hell, there's plenty of room. Can I refill your eggnog for you? Drive you out to the middle of nowhere, leave you for dead?
Chevy Chips.
Everybody come out quick, look at the lights!
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Starts Friday, December 1st at a theater near you.
So at this point, I'm going to do my 2 extra shout-outs that I forgot earlier.
Okay.
One of them's obvious, and I think at this point, a lot of people have been oversaturated by it, but I think it has some validity to it in terms of being a good Christmas movie and a great comedy movie, and that's Elf. I think it's kind of been overplayed, but I think it took a different comedic approach. It's heartwarming, and the character within it is this pure good character, Buddy the Elf.
Right.
But it has some real sarcasm notes to it. And I don't know, I think that if you try to get through the veneer of it sort of this oversaturation that it has become in recent years, I think there's a good movie in there still.
It's become a modern classic.
Yeah.
It launched Jon Favreau's directing career.
Hard to believe.
I think it cemented Will Ferrell as a viable leading man.
Yep.
And it's arguable that it kind of launched Zooey Deschanel as kind of a romantic lead as well.
Yeah, easy to overlook.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot. I saw it a lot when it was newer and got kind of burned out on that too, but I like it still overall.
Yeah.
I can see why it remains popular. And I think it takes, it's obvious where it gets its influences. It even uses some of the pieces of Santa Claus the movie with the elf leaving the North Pole and coming to the city, and it's a good extension of classic movies.
Absolutely. And as we talk, I feel like I'm leaving things out, and it's almost irresponsible to do so. They're just not movies that I find especially that I'm super into,
Mm-hmm.
The obvious choices like Miracle on 34th Street.
Right.
Or A Christmas Story, which has some really good moments in it that I really enjoy, actually. That's another movie that was made at a time where, well, I guess it wasn't made at that time. It takes place in a time where you expect things like dialogue and naturalistic conversation not to happen, but it does. But I'm not here to mention those right now. The other one I wanted to give a shout out to was this year. It was released this year on Netflix. It's the Christmas Chronicles, and it has Kurt Russell as Santa.
I have yet to see it, but I kind of can't wait.
It is really interesting. It's just, again, it's another take on this like modernization of the Santa Claus. It's not really the story of Santa Claus. I mean, he's an important factor, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes a different, fun approach to it, and Kurt Russell has a little bit more attitude as Santa Claus. He's not like the gritty reboot or anything. Don't get me wrong, but I just wanted to shout that out because it was definitely a different experience to watch that, and it's cool that it was on Netflix. So,
well, in that same vein, I'm actually kind of surprised we haven't yet seen Jeff Bridges in a Santa Claus movie.
It would just be called like Claus, but it would be spelled like Klaus.
Right.
Okay. He's just had enough after all these years.
Yep, he's fed up.
Okay, so I'll go back to my list proper then. I mean, I'd be surprised if it wasn't on yours, although, again, this is a movie that has been way oversaturated for most people. Released by RKO Pictures, 1946. It's a Wonderful Life.
Strange, isn't it? Each man's life touches so many other lives. You really had a wonderful life. Don't you see what a mistake it would be to throw it away?
Get me back. I don't care what happens to me. I want to live again.
Merry Christmas! Happy New Year to you!
You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Now, the thing that I like about It's a Wonderful Life is that everybody remembers it as being like this sappy movie. Every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. But like 80% of the movie is like an episode of The Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
20 years before The Twilight Zone happened.
For sure.
I mean, it's just him sort of like falling deeper and deeper into this like paranoia as he steps into this alternate dimension where he didn't live through childhood and people don't know who he is. And it's kind of... It's quite a trip through, like, psychosis. And I think it really gets overlooked for those qualities because everybody thinks about the fuzzy ending.
Well, I mean, it is done in a way that takes you on an emotional journey. We've actually... In my family, we watch this probably every 5 years. And because of that, I haven't been super oversaturated personally.
Right.
But culturally, I know it's very much ubiquitous in terms of Christmas movies.
Yeah.
It is excellent. I was surprised to learn that it was kind of a flop when it was released.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what saved it. I don't know if TV showing it brought it back to prominence or what. But
I think so, just because it was at some point, I think it was basically a public domain picture. Like, nobody really owned it, so it was super cheap to air.
It always seemed to me like a different version of like the Christmas Carol story, like the way it takes you through, scenarios that could happen or whatever.
Right.
But it's different enough to where I don't think you would initially, associate them.
Right, and the character, like, he's not a villainous character being redeemed. He's a good man who's lost his hope.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a different formula, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think this is clearly deserving of inclusion on any Christmas movie list. I'm not sure I'll watch it this year, but I really do think it's a great movie.
Yep, agreed. That's why it's on my list.
I think that the setting is based on, what was it, Glens Falls?
I've heard different things.
Yeah, maybe an amalgamation.
Yeah, I think it's I want to say maybe Seneca Falls.
I think you're right. That's
which is pretty near where we are, because the bridge in the movie is supposed to be the bridge over the river that's near that town, and
right.
So who knows? You get sort of mixed signals on that sort of thing. Actually, it's funny because the connection to the Twilight Zone. Rod Serling is from an area very near to where we are, and so a lot of the stories that he has told have been sort of like assumed to be taking place in towns that are sort of analogous to the small towns in this area. So it's kind of interesting that comes up, and I already made the connection between It's a Wonderful Life and the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, great pick.
So my list is done.
All right. Well, I have one left on mine, and it is chronologically the newest choice I have on my proper list. and one that I actually am proud to say I got to see in the theater. Only the second true Christmas movie I ever saw in the theater. And I believe the other one was this same year. That other one was a movie called Prancer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was
one of my sister's favorite movies.
Really?
Yep.
I honestly don't think I've seen it since seeing it in the theater.
We had it on VHS, the big clamshell case.
Perfect. I'm going to have to look that up again.
We're not poor. We got apples. Make apple butter, apple sauce, apple pie, apple crisp.
Dumplings?
Maybe dumplings.
No Sam Elliott's in it, so anything
he plays
he's
the
in,
dad.
I'm going to have to look at again.
Yep.
However, my true number one, well, by default since White Christmas was eliminated, is Home Alone.
Where are you going? We're going to miss the plane.
When the McAllister family left on their Christmas vacation,
Did we miss the plane? No, you just made it.
they forgot one small thing.
Have yourself
A terrible feeling. Did you lock up?
let yourself be light.
Do we set the timers on the lights?
Mm-hmm.
What else could we be forgetting?
Our troubles will be ours.
Kevin!
Home Alone.
Oh. I overlooked it.
Yes. A mistake that I intend to capitalize
I don't know if it would have made the cut, but I did overlook it.
This is, you want to talk about cultural saturation. To this day, there is, on some hacky Disney Channel sitcom, there has to be a moment where a little kid puts his hands on his face and screams for no reason.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that.
I think this is one of two movies my biological father took me to see in the theater. And I just remember being, even from seeing it then, I was 8. And I remember being blown away, and it's just been so rewatchable every year since. I like the sequel, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, as well, but it's nowhere near as impactful and memorable.
Despite the fact that I overlooked it, I do not lack any familiarity with this movie. We also had this one on VHS and watched it pretty regularly.
Yeah. Couldn't escape it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember, yeah, it was a very familiar, even though they live in a mansion, like, I don't know what his parents did for a living, but
yeah. The dad had to be some sort of, like, I don't know, stock market trader.
Yeah, probably. It's funny because what I remember the most about it is this stupid scene where they're in the older brother's bedroom, and the kid goes, "Who's going to feed your spider while we're gone?" He just ate a whole load of mice guts. He should be okay for a couple weeks. I don't know why that line sticks with me, because there's obviously like a ton of other classic stuff.
Right.
But that one just sticks with me for some reason. Although, I do like also how, like, in sort of nerd things on the internet, people talk about how, like, with prep time, Batman beats everybody. People come back like, with prep time, Kevin McAllister beats everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, well, it's interesting in the ensuing years how you can kind of frame this movie to be other things besides a Christmas movie. There's an argument for it to be kind of a spiritual precursor to the Saw movies. This is almost a torture porn movie.
Oh, wow. I never would have thought of that. All right.
The argument is that I've heard is, he takes his time, methodically designs all these painful traps for these two guys, and then at the very end, after he's put them through everything he has, then he calls the police.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is the confluence of amazing talent behind this movie is quite something. You have John Hughes writing it, and you have Chris Columbus directing it, who, of course, went on to Harry Potter and, I don't know, several other movies, but he's a very successful director. And then you have John Candy making an appearance in it, Catherine O'Hara, who was a comedy veteran at that point.
Joe Pesci, Daniel Stern,
course, yes.
the Wet Bandits.
I was thinking of, I feel like there's somebody in a small role I'm missing too. But, yeah, just, if not the talent, like, being, if not focusing on the previous merits of the talent involved, the performances that everybody gives in this movie were just perfect. It's kind of, it's similar in that way to Christmas Vacation. Even the child actors do great jobs.
Right.
They're all memorable. They're all they all at least get one pretty good line in there.
Yep.
Even the random brothers and sisters in this household of 8 or 10 kids or however many running around. Everybody always remembers when because they're going to Paris, and that's what sets up the movie, is they're getting ready to go to Paris, and that's why he's left home alone. And I remember for years, I think it was part of the trailer too, when the sister says, "Kevin, you're what the French call les incompetents." And I remember when it came time for us to take a foreign language class in school, one of our classmates wanted to take French so he could ask the teacher what that meant.
Wow, that's a long way to go for that information.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a real dedication.
I guess so.
But yeah, I'll watch this absolutely this year, and every year I'm lucky enough to partake in Christmas.
Yep. I have not watched it in a long time, but again, I should revisit.
Everyone in this family hates me.
Then maybe you should ask Santa for a new family.
I don't want a new family. I don't want any family.
I'm dreaming.
You're what the French call les incompetents.
Christmas.
What?
I wouldn't let you sleep in my room if you were growing on my ass.
Watch it! Look what you did, you little jerk.
What is the matter with you? There are 15 people in this house, and the only one who has to make trouble.
You're taking a trip to Paris.
Yes, we hope to leave tomorrow morning.
In the snow.
Peter! We slept in!
No, you just made it.
Terrible feeling.
What else could we be forgetting?
Kevin! I made my family disappear.
It's on the list. It's got to be.
Fair enough.
Speaking of lists, that brings mine to a close.
And mine as well. I have nothing else to give in 2018.
Well, since we're spent here, I hope your Christmas viewing is as busy and rewarding as ours is sure to be. I have been your friend Claude.
And I've been just Jamie.
See you next Christmas.
Later.
The N.E.R.D.Bomber podcast is a Ghost Factory internet production brought to you by the WEM Network.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.